Hi everybody, I'm Yvette Edwards and I'm here today to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are at Unilever, what our business does and what the opportunities might be for you. So I don't know if we can just flip to the next slide. Brilliant. So I'm the Communications and Corporate Affairs Director at Unilever, and within my remit, I'm also a diversity champion. So I sit on our diversity steerco, and I am the leadership sponsor on disability, and that is a particular personal passion point for me. I have a 13-year-old son who is a wheelchair user, and I'm really hoping that the world of work for him will be really significantly more accessible even than it is now. So I'm really keen to try and play my part in making that happen. And then we will also be joined by my colleague Sarah, and Sarah looks after all of our future careers and is our absolute guru on all the opportunities at Unilever, and will be able to answer any questions that you might have. So I just wanted to kind of start with a little bit of an overview of Unilever, because you may have heard of Unilever but not be quite sure what we actually do or who we are. So we're a global company, and we're actually founded in the UK in the 1890s, and we have kind of been trading ever since. And if you fast forward to today, we now operate in well over 100 countries around the world, and we have about 155,000 employees globally. And I myself look after the UK business, but hopefully you will have heard of some of our brands. There's a little collection on the slide here, but broadly we kind of have three big chunks of our business. We have a foods business, and hopefully you will be familiar with pot noodle, but there's lots of other things, and we make a lot of ice cream. So we make Ben and Jerry's, we make Magnum, which you can see here, we make Walls. We also have a kind of home care bit of our business, which is all about laundry, so things like Surf and Persil, Comfort, and cleaning products like Cif and Domestos. And then we also have what we call our beauty and personal care business, which makes a lot of things like soaps and shampoos, so deodorants, things like Sure, Lynx, Tresemme, hair products. Dove is one of our big brands. So hopefully you'll have kind of come across some of our brands at some point. If you could flick to the next slide, that would be great. In the UK and Ireland, we have about 6,000 employees across 10 sites and over 10 sites. And actually, we also have about 8 factories. So a lot of what we sell in the UK, we make in the UK. And you can find, and hopefully you'll have sort of seen from all of the brands I just talked about, you can find us in quite a few shopping baskets in the UK, and at some point or another you can usually find a Unilever product in 9 out of every 10 UK homes. So we definitely have a lot of reach and a lot of presence on the supermarket shelves. And I think what's kind of interesting about our kind of presence in the UK is we have our global head office here in the centre of London, and we obviously also have our UK and Ireland businesses based here. But as well as our factories and our offices, we have 2 research and development sort of big sites, and a third slightly smaller one. And our scientists are absolutely amazing. They are really on the cutting edge of sorting out, or trying to sort out lots of things, come up with new materials, get rid of plastic. So there's really fantastic opportunities. It's not just about brands and marketing. There's also scientists and HR and my own function, which is communication. So there's kind of lots of different opportunities and areas of our business based in the UK and in Ireland. I think if we could move in, the kind of other big thing I just wanted to mention is that kind of at Unilever, really right from our origins, but particularly now, we have a kind of dual aim. It's obviously it's to grow our business, but it's to grow our business without adversely impacting the planet and people. And so for us, the mission of making sustainable living commonplace, which is a bit wordy, but the kind of basic what we're trying to say is making sure that we think about and drive sustainability in everything that we do. Is really, really key to our business, and having a positive social impact is part of that. And I can sort of definitely tell you from my own experience, and I'm sure Sarah would be able to say that from hers, that this isn't something that is an add-on. This is expected when you work at Unilever. So, for example, when the COVID pandemic first hit a few months ago, my team, myself, everybody was talking about what can we do, where can we make donations, where can we support. We make some products that are potentially very useful, so how can we do that? And that's something that is expected. It's not something that we have to really, work hard to make happen in our business. So that for me is a really important reason for me as to why I work at Unilever. We have some very big overarching kind of goals when it comes to sustainability. I won't go through all of them in detail. The ones that I am very involved in myself in the UK is our mission to halve our use of virgin plastic by 2025. And we're making some good progress, but there's definitely also some challenges, and we work with lots of other big businesses, I'm sure some of them that you will be hearing from today, to really work collectively to try and make a difference in that area. Same on net zero. So we've said that we want net zero emissions through all of our products by 2039. So that's slightly ahead of some global goals. And we've also have just launched a £1 billion climate and nature fund that's globally, not just in the UK. But part of all of this, and kind of the bit that we're obviously going to talk to you about today, is the kind of people side of that, because unless we support, celebrate our own people, but the communities that we work in, none of this is remotely achievable. So Sarah, I don't know if you could just flick on to the next slide for me. And the kind of first bit that I'm going to chat to you about is a little bit about how we see diversity and inclusion. And there's kind of two really key reasons why that's important for us. I spoke earlier about how we are present, or our products are present in the vast majority of households in the UK. And so we need to reflect in our own teams and in the people making those products and coming up with those products, the fantastic diversity in our country. And we need to do that both from a kind of an employee point of view, and kind of being diverse and fair is kind of really crucial to everybody internally. But it's also so that we can do the best job. And the best job for the people who buy our products, and having diverse teams that think about the different communities that we are serving, and so the more varied and the more varied perspectives we have, the more likely we are to be able to do that well. And so kind of there's a lot of work going on. I'm not going to sit here and say we've got this sorted, it's all fine. We have made some really brilliant progress, and we still have a really long way to go. So I think this is a massive focus for us at the moment. And we have kind of started really with our own people, and really celebrating diversity internally. And we kind of, our focus for a long time was really on gender, because that was a kind of really crucial area. We wanted to make sure that we had a good gender balance at management level, which we do now have. and that we were very family friendly and thoughtful about how we could make it easier for women to work and to progress within our company. And that work is ongoing, but we are also really renewing, accelerating our focus on race, on disability, on LGBT. And what we found is that actually our own employees are absolutely brilliant. You know, there are people, I talked about my own passion on the disability front, that's replicated across our organisation, and people really want to try and get involved and helping and moving these agendas on. So there is some great work going on, and these pictures that you can see here are our employee networks. And that is really about connecting people with each other, but it's also helping to drive that agenda and find the answers internally. And our kind of, I think it's Proud, Empower and Enable networks are, some are global, some are local, some have got kind of both global and local elements to them. So they're a really brilliant way of connecting people together. I'm on Enable, as you would probably expect, and I've learned loads. I've just learned loads from other people I obviously know quite a lot about, having to navigate the world when you live with somebody who's a wheelchair user, and how tricky that can be sometimes. But I've actually learned tons through Enable from people who have different challenges, whether that is you know, kind of, we have people who are blind or who live with chronic conditions, or are, you know, have kind of issues with mobility, and so the other kind of big area of focus is neurodiversity, which I'll talk a bit about in a minute. And again, I'm learning a lot as we go about that. So I hope that kind of gives you a sense of a little bit of what we do internally. We kind of make sure we use our opportunities as well. So, you know, Black History Month has been absolutely brilliant for kind of coming forward with content, external content, internal content. Pride Month, and actually Pride is always a great opportunity for our brands to get involved as well, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. And it's really also just about driving pride and engagement for people internally. However, as I said, we definitely don't have all the answers, and we are super grateful for some of our really brilliant external partners. So there's kind of really, I guess I could sort of chunk it into, I won't go through everything in detail, but so one of the areas that we're trying to be really good at is opening the door. And so whether that's through internships or placements, just kind of giving people an opportunity to experience what it is to be at Unilever. Because I think sometimes, you know, especially when you're a student and you haven't necessarily worked anywhere yet, it all just feels a bit opaque. It's like, what does that person do versus what does that person do? What's this department do? So some of these internships are really about kind of giving people a bit of experience and giving them a sense of, actually, you know, I don't really much fancy that, but that looks really interesting and I want to go and find out a bit more. And what we've been doing is working with King's College. We started a partnership with them, and we did summer internships, or we have been doing summer internships for people, students with disabilities. I had someone in my own team last year, and that's really brilliant. And again, actually, you know, yes, you know, those students come in, they learn from us. I always learn tons from them as well. It's similarly with the Amos Bursary. The Amos Bursary is an organisation that gets young Black men into work experience situations, supports them through university, and again, you know, we've done quite a lot of summer placements with some of the young men from the Amos Bursary, and again, I've had people in my own team absolutely brilliant. And again, it's just about showing what Unilever is about, and definitely someone said to me last year, I think your department's not really for me, but I'm super interested in that one over there. I said, that's fine, let me go and bring that person, and then you can have a chat and see if you still like it. And that's just fine, right? Because that's brilliant. That's, you know, that's how it should be. And then it's also just making sure that, and Sarah, I know, is working really hard on this, and some of her team, making sure that our opportunities are really visible in the right places. And so just one example of that is Even Break, where we make sure that they're a website that makes sure that job vacancies are seen by people who have disabilities. So it's a really good way of making sure that any vacancies that we have are posted on there, and that therefore they reach a really important audience full of talent for us. And so, I mean, the only other thing I would mention probably is the Unstereotype Alliance, because that's quite a good way of working with others and working with other businesses. So this is all about trying to remove stereotyping, and in particular gender stereotyping, from media and advertising. And it's a UN project that we're involved in. And I'll show you in a minute kind of how powerful brands can be in that space. But under that umbrella, we're working with other businesses, and at the moment the focus is on women of colour and what we can do to kind of better represent people in our ads. And again, Switchboard is another interesting one. So as well as kind of being a really good partner to us with advice and support, we've also worked with them to, for example, put their helpline on some of our brands in Superdrug. So during Pride Week, for example, we make sure that we, in partnership, bring their helpline to as many people as possible. So that's kind of our external partners, and there's loads more. I could literally talk about this all day, but you haven't got all day, and I'm very happy to answer any questions sort of afterwards. But there are many, many more partners. This is a kind of small representation. And as I said, it's not just what we can do internally for our own people and attracting the best talent to come and work for us at Unilever. And one of the kind of most powerful things that we have to kind of forward the diversity and inclusion agenda is our brands. And one kind of example of that I just wanted to share with you is Dove. So we did a big project, a global project actually, through Dove called Show Us, and this was all about trying to challenge the use of stereotypes in advertising. And we partnered with Getty Images and an organisation called Girl Gauge to come up. We had, I think, something like 116 photographers across 39 countries to take kind of much more authentic pictures of women of all ages, races, shapes, sizes. And this big photo library is now sitting on Getty Images for everybody to be able to use. So if they are searching for pictures or images of women to use in a campaign, there is a kind of much more diverse and broad range of pictures to choose from. And then the other one, which is actually slightly hot off the press, I haven't seen this myself yet, but Lynx have partnered with Complex, and they've created a sort of 3-part series called The Race Card. And this is all about getting people to talk about their day-to-day experiences and some of the kind of, their experiences of kind of stereotyping or, sometimes like well-intentioned but badly executed conversations, and it's just really to kind of drive awareness and insight, particularly in the wake of all the Black Lives Matters coverage of the last and events of the last few months. So it's just a good example, and actually in a kind of virtuous circle, we took some of the Amos Bursary young men that I talked about earlier as an experience onto the set of some of these things being filmed just for experience. So that's been really great as well. And this is launching next week, so keep an eye out for that. And then finally, it's not just about marketing. I think where some of our brands can also really lean into this agenda is through doing things as opposed to in their ads. So the picture on the left is our Ben and Jerry's sort of scheme, which is called ICE Academy, and that's all about supporting refugees with helping them to become entrepreneurial. Sometimes that can involve working in our ice cream stores, or it can help support them with business plans and skills. And similarly with I'm Walls, that is about removing barriers to people who might be quite far from the workplace for whatever reason, and we basically open up and let it's kind of through various partners we get people to kind of run our ice cream stores, so for example in kind of big theme parks, as a summer placement. And again, it's all about helping people, these are all paid, by the way, experiences, and it's all about helping people to kind of gain some proper work and business skills and handling money. And actually I had a letter not so long ago from the mum of someone who'd been on this scheme and said that their child who has quite severe learning difficulties had been able to build some confidence. So from doing 6 weeks on this, they then were able to progress into other paid work. So that's always really lovely to know that it does have an impact, but we want to, and we need to scale it more, setting aside obviously the current challenges, which we really hope will go away at some point. But it's a kind of really good example of how our brands can actually get involved in driving the diversity agenda and the social mobility agenda, which for me is kind of part of diversity and inclusion. And then I'm just going to sort of finish my bit with a quote from our global CEO, Alan. He actually said diversity and inclusion, one of the 3 things that we want Unilever to be famous for. But because we're talking about this one, and I think it just underlines that at very senior level, this is such an important area for us to get right. We don't always get it right. We don't always have all the answers, but we do have a lot of people with a lot of passion and a lot that's going on at the moment to try and make sure that our organisation is as diverse and inclusive as possible. And I know that the focus of today is not just D&I, but also well-being, which is another area that Unilever has done an enormous amount in. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who will be able to tell you a bit more, and also we'll talk a bit about the opportunities that we have. Thanks very much.
Fab, thanks Yvette. So hi everyone, as Yvette said, I work in our HR team here at Unilever, and I work in our future careers team. So we look after a variety of the initiatives that Yvette's already spoken around, sort of I'm Walls, and we work really closely with the Amos Bursary, etc. But we also look after our future careers programs, which I'll come on to talk to you a little bit about in a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit around kind of well-being at Unilever. So well-being has always been important and is kind of featured in what we do at Unilever. But obviously with all of our employees, including those who work in our factories, having worked throughout the pandemic, to kind of, help keep our products on shelves, supporting our employees' well-being is more important now than ever before in the environment that we are currently working in. So the way that we kind of frame well-being at Unilever is that you are never far from one chat, one call, or one click away from getting the support that you need. And the way that we kind of frame this for our employees is that we break it down into 4 different kind of key pillars, with the additional support of your line manager as well, of course. So I won't go into huge amounts of detail. What you can essentially see on the slide here is kind of what we call our well-being roadmap. So it's kind of all of the different resources that are available to all of our employees from a well-being perspective. But to kind of give you a flavour of the kind of support that's available, so we have gyms available on most of our sites. We also have employees at kind of across the business who are mental health first aiders. I actually completed the course, so I'm also a mental health first aider within our community. And so this is kind of makes up what we call our time to talk team. So it means that employees always have someone that they can reach out to, just to have a chat, to talk about how they're feeling, and ultimately to have someone who can kind of point them in the right direction of all of these wellbeing resources too. One of my favourite things that we also have access to, being employees at Unilever, is a full membership with Headspace, which, if you haven't used it before, is a fantastic meditation and mindfulness app. So that's kind of just a bit of a flavour of all of the really great resources that we have access to as employees. So now I've kind of, between myself and Yvette, obviously we've given you a very good kind of overview of kind of D&I and who Unilever are and some wellbeing stuff. Here's also a really good example of kind of how we've brought wellbeing to life sort of throughout the pandemic. So we have been supporting our employees in lots of different ways. Not only have our employees throughout the pandemic had access to all of those resources that I just showed you, but we also hosted what was called our virtual wellbeing festival, which was a huge success. So again, just giving you a bit of a flavour of the kind of things that we had on offer. There's a couple of pictures on there for you, but there were various sessions throughout the week that the festival ran, so that we were covering topics such as nutrition, sleep, winter health, some financial well-being, working at home, which has obviously been a challenge for lots of our employees at the moment. We covered a bit on bereavement as well. We also had some really fun activities, which you can see on the screen now, including conversations with some of our prestige brands, so Dermalogica, Murad, Ren. We also had a Pimp My Magnum session that you can see on the slide. We had a baking session, as well as various competitions throughout the week. So that's kind of just, a bit of a flavour for the kind of things that we've been doing to kind of keep wellbeing alive, sort of since we've all been working in this strange environment. But now to kind of move on to a little bit more around kind of what I do in the area that I work in. So obviously we've spoken to you about kind of how we're working to be a really inclusive employer, and then obviously I've sort of touched on how we can support wellbeing. But some of you are probably thinking, this sounds great, but how can I get involved? How can I potentially eventually become an employee at Unilever? So as I mentioned before, I work in our Future Careers team, and our kind of great big ambition is for us to support over 100,000 people into a purposeful career by 2023. So that's in lots of different ways. So as Yvette mentioned, the initiatives including things like we work with Movement to Work, we work with the Amos Bursary, we run our initiatives like Iron Walls that we've already gone through. But the two kind of key programs that I want to take you through today that help us in this area are our graduate and our industrial placement programs. So our industrial placement program is a one-year placement for students who are in their penultimate year of university, and runs from June to June. So the opportunities span across various different functions within our business. So areas like marketing, communications, customer development, supply chain, research and development, etc., etc. And then students who complete our industrial placement program are actually able to potentially be fast-tracked onto our Discovery Centre for our graduate scheme at the end of that program too. So then to touch on our graduate program, so the UFLP, or what is externally known as the Unilever Future Leaders Programme, is our 3-year graduate scheme, and the idea of the programme is to prepare graduates for leadership roles. So it starts in September. The placement starts in June, as I mentioned. But essentially, the graduate scheme is it includes a variety of different business rotations to kind of help really accelerate our graduates kind of into those leadership roles, as I mentioned. So I could share huge amounts of information on our industrial placement programme and the UFLP, but conscious of time, and also appreciate that some of you probably want to ask us some questions. But what you can do, if you want to find out any more information about either of those programmes, you can have a look. If you scan the QR code that's on the slide now, you can go to our website where you can find out loads more information about the programmes. We also have a register your interest link on there too. So when we do go live for applications, which will be happening in sort of from December time, we'll be able to kind of send you some emails around applying for our programmes and things like that. So if you want to find out more from that perspective, then scan the QR code. But now I think we are ready to potentially go on to some questions if we have any.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Nisha, and thank you from Make My Placement. Thank you so much for that really insightful presentation. That was really good. And wow, you've Unilever doing so many initiatives to support diversity and inclusion, which is brilliant. So I've been looking at all the questions coming in, and we've had a few. So to start us off, so you mentioned about Unilever and the strong D&I mission statement. What do you think sets you apart from other competitors?
I think at the moment, I would say that our ambition. So I definitely think that there's lots of great work going on in lots of different companies on this agenda. I think because we're really super competitive, I think we want to be the best. I'm not sure that's a claim we would make right now, but that's definitely the ambition. I think, you know, the ambition, certainly in my area on disability, is to be the employer of choice for people with disabilities. And so I think in this area there's always more to be done. So I don't want to sit here and say, you know, we're so brilliant, everybody else isn't. Everybody's working hard in this space. But I mean, I can only talk about Unilever because that's what I know. But I know the passion is real. I know the commitment is real, and I know people are taking action because I'm at the heart of that. And I guess, you know, I would encourage you to also ask the same of any other company that appears today. And so what are you doing, and how important is this on your agenda?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I seem very high on Unilever's agenda. I've got another question from Yasmin. She asks, how has Unilever been affected by COVID-19, and what are the strategies to recover / go forward?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think in different ways, actually. So because we make some products that have been in really high demand, so hand sanitizer, soap, bleach, you know, we can see the Domestos there, you know, cleaning products. So that area of our business has done, you know, really well. And I think it's no secret that some, you know, the other parts of our business, we have also have a business which isn't about shops and retailers. It's about restaurants and, you know, kind of ice cream, you know, in other venues. And obviously that's been really tricky. That's been much harder through lockdown and beyond, and with people not wanting to go out as much. So it's definitely been difficult. I think our first priority has been the safety of our people. And we put in place some pretty draconian and robust health and safety measures in all our factories right at the start. Our office-based people mostly work from home, and then we have a few people in our R&D labs who also work under these really, I mean, and for those guys it's really tough, right? Because if you're in one of our factories and you're working in really heavy going PPE all day, that's a really different way of working. So yeah, and obviously it has been you know, Sarah talked a lot about well-being. I think it's been a really strange time for people, and we, you know, we want to play our part in kind of, you know, helping everybody to recover, not just ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a very, very strange time for a lot of companies over the last few months. And you talked a lot about your initiatives like pushing diversity and inclusion. Are these initiatives like for all employees? Can everyone get involved in working?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the idea is particularly for our networks, it's not just so you can join any of the networks if you're an employee, because you can also be an ally. You don't necessarily need to be disabled to join the disability network, for example. You can be an ally, same with the others. So yeah, and there's a lot of passion in the people that are working in our brands as well. So yeah, loads of opportunities for people to get involved.
Brilliant. I've just seen quite a few questions come in about the application process. So you mentioned that the industrial placement applications open in December, am I right? When do they close?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of when, we don't necessarily have a kind of hard closing date. But what I would say is that our programs are very popular. So if you are keen to apply, I would apply sooner rather than later. And as I mentioned earlier, you can register your interest as well in our programs on our website as well. So if you register your interest, then you'll kind of get first access to those applications to make sure that you don't miss out.
Brilliant. And does that apply to your summer internships? When do they open too?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of our summer program this year, because our summer program was due to begin literally as we kind of went into the pandemic, we deferred a lot of our placements from last year to this year, which means that that cohort is actually already filled. But I mean, we will of course advertise any kind of new summer internships that come up, and then of course our industrial placement program as well.
Brilliant. And how are those placements and internships looking? Are they all going to be virtual on a virtual basis?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously with us looking kind of at them starting in sort of June of next year, it's a lot of things we expect will change by then. We hope to be doing a lot more kind of in our offices and being able to have a lot more kind of face-to-face interaction with our colleagues by that time. But we're working on a really robust plan to enable us to deliver stuff virtually and also for it to still be really impactful. You know, industrial placement students that started with us in June of this year have all really hit the ground running and have actually settled in really well to for a lot of them who are working from home. I think we were a little bit concerned about how students might feel about working from home and not having that face-to-face interaction, but actually for a lot of them it's they don't know anything different and have really kind of settled into it really well. So as much as we hope to be able to do as much as we can face-to-face, we're also setting up for doing some of it virtually and for it to be almost as good as it would be face-to-face as well.
Yeah, oh, brilliant, lovely. And I've got a few questions about, does Unilever hire international students who require visa sponsorship too?
So unfortunately, we can't support those from a sponsorship perspective, but obviously worth bearing in mind that we are a global organisation as well. So there's no reason that if you can't necessarily do one of, for example, if you can't do the UFLP in the UK, there's no reason why you couldn't potentially apply for it kind of in your home country. So definitely what I would recommend is having a look on our global website, so unilever.com, and you can have a look at the career opportunities through there as well.
Oh, brilliant. And then there's a few more questions on the application process, but a few students are asking, what stands out in an application?
Yeah, so I think, one of the key things for us, and Yvette touched on this, but we're a purpose-driven organisation. So for someone who understands kind of what they want to achieve and sort of what their purpose is, we do a lot of kind of upskilling when people are in the business around, you can find your purpose and then how you can really kind of bring that to the core of everything that you do. But for someone to have an awareness of kind of what they're hoping to achieve is really good. I think the other thing is that obviously we're a business and we're looking to grow in a sustainable way. So I think being aware of, current affairs, being aware of, kind of how to make businesses grow whilst also making sustainable choices, I think is really important. And I think, the other thing that really stands out for us when we meet candidates at interviews and at our discovery centres is actually you can really tell tell candidates apart those who have kind of done their research on the company versus those who haven't. And I think, you know, for us, some of our kind of core beliefs and our values are so important.
Yeah.
So would highly recommend that for those of you who are looking to apply, that you kind of do your research. And there's so much available on our website and on social media and stuff like that. Yeah, so do your research.
Brilliant. Yeah, and just flipping that on its head, is there anything you've seen in applications that you advise against?
Is also a good question. To be honest, in terms of our applications, a lot of it is around kind of motivations, why do you want to apply for our program, and things like that. So I would just say try and give us as much detail as possible. Show us that you've really thought why you want to join Unilever. I think, you know, I know that the application process can be quite lengthy with multiple companies, but try and be specific. So instead of just saying, I want to apply for an industrial placement program, why do you want to apply for Unilever's industrial placement program? Why are you applying for ours versus some of our competitors or even those in different industries? So I would probably advise against maybe having such a generic application.
Yeah, brilliant. And Yvette, you talked about some of your CSR initiatives. Could you just go into a bit more detail about what Unilever actually does to support those?
Yeah, sure. So actually, maybe I can talk about so the kind of the three maybe main focuses in my team are climate, plastic, and kind of what we would broadly call sort of job opportunities. So that includes sort of D&I and then some of the schemes that we just talked about, and making ourselves, you know, as attractive and as accessible as possible. On plastic, we launched a big campaign last year called Get Plastic Wise, and when we talk about plastic, it's sort of our products. It's also trying to communicate really clearly with people about what's recyclable, what isn't recyclable. We invented, I say we, I actually had nothing to do with are super very clever people in R&D, but they invented a new pigment of black plastic, because we use black plastic in brands like Tresemme and Lynx, and previously that wasn't detectable in the recycling centres, because basically plastic goes through a machine and there's an infrared thing that detects what sort of plastic it is. Very clever. Anyway, it wasn't able to detect, it's not able to detect black plastic. So with a load of our partners, our R&D people just went and came up with a completely new type of black plastic that is now readable by these infrared machines. So some of it is quite sciencey like that, and I get to do the comms, and some of it is campaigns, and some of it there's something quite exciting coming up that I can't quite talk about yet now, but it's about changing people's behaviour that we're hoping to be involved in. So always loads going on, always loads more going on, and there's always more to do.
Oh, absolutely, definitely sounds that way. And then Sarah, you were talking a lot about well-being, and it is so important, I think, you know, in the workplace, you know, everyone looks after their well-being. And you mentioned, is it a Headspace app? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, and I think, so, I mean, the way that I was kind of talking about it before is that we're really lucky in the sense that we kind of get like an enhanced membership with Headspace as being Unilever employees, but it's actually available. There's a free version available for everyone. So if you haven't already downloaded it, I would highly recommend it, but there's so much available in there. And I think actually, even since I've been using it, over the last few months, I think there's been a lot more kind of added on to the app, but there's loads around sort of guided meditation. There's things like there's breathing techniques that you can use. And, you know, I think a lot of the kind of environment that we're living in is really overwhelming at the moment. And actually applications like Headspace is a really good way for you to just take 5 minutes out and, you know, have a guided meditation, or I think there are some sleep podcasts on there as well, so you can listen to people to help you get to sleep if you're struggling with your sleep. Yeah, you can do some of the breathing techniques on there. So there's so much available on there, and I mean it's one of many different applications and websites and organisations that are kind of supporting people's, you know, mental health and well-being. But yeah, that's one that I would definitely recommend and have used a lot myself over the last sort of 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, so to all students out there, download that now. Or someone has just said it's amazing. So yeah, oh, brilliant. And then yeah, we're coming to a close now. So just got a question for both of you. And what is your favourite thing about working at Unilever? So it's quite broad.
I can probably take that one first. So I think a couple of things for me. So first of all is I think just generally the sustainable living plan. So the fact that Unilever is so committed to sustainability in all ways, shapes and forms, that's kind of one of my favourite values of Unilever that really aligns to kind of my purpose. But secondly, it's definitely the discounted ice cream.
You can't go wrong.
Once we're back in the office, we actually have we do have a little Ben and Jerry's stand, so you can go for a little scoop of Ben and Jerry's after your lunch. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting back in the office for that.
Oh, very jealous. Yes, absolutely. And Yvette, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favourite days of the year is as the leadership team, we actually, probably won't happen this year, but generally the ice cream team come and like serve up ice cream and say, these are all the things we're innovating, here are all the new products for next year, what do you think? And the first year that happened, I said, well, I ate my ice cream, thought, oh, that's very nice, yes, lovely. And now what I didn't realise was that was the first of like 10 ice creams.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, that was definitely a good day. That's my son just says, my mum eats ice cream at work. So obviously I do quite a lot more than that. Yeah, I think my favourite thing is the people. You know, I think it's a really collaborative environment, and you know, everybody that I've worked with in my time at Unilever has been super friendly, super helpful. You know, I haven't come across any sort of anything that's really unpleasant, and I think it's a very upbeat, generally quite an upbeat place to work. And if you ever need help, someone will come and help you. So that's probably my favourite thing. Is I think it's very friendly.
Yeah. Oh, well, it seems like a lovely, great employer to work for. And I just want to end it there and say thank you so much for sharing all your insights. And I believe the students can go and head over to your booth after and ask you any questions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll be on the booth for the next couple of days. If you do have any questions, then yeah, please do head over. But thank you for having us. It's been so great to speak to you all. And yeah, as I said, come and ask any questions if you do have any.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, thank you very much and speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.